Part 1. The beginning of life on Earth. Life on Earth began over 3.5 billion years ago. At that time, the planet was very different from what it is today. The atmosphere was saturated with carbon dioxide and water vapor, and the Earth's surface was not yet covered with abundant life. During this period, only simple unicellular organisms existed, which lacked high organization and were represented by prokaryotes, the most primitive forms of life, which had no nucleus. The most common among them were bacteria and archaea, which possessed unique properties and the ability to adapt to the harsh conditions of early Earth. These prokaryotes were the foundation for the emergence of the first biological systems. It was within their simple cells that all the basic life processes began, which later became the basis for the development of more complex organisms. Thanks to their ability to reproduce, undergo natural selection and mutate, prokaryotes became the cornerstone for the further evolution of life on our planet. Over billions of years, these simple organisms gradually evolved and became increasingly complex. New species of organisms emerged, capable of more complex functions and capable of interacting with the surrounding environment. This is how the first ecosystems began to form, groups of organisms that interacted with each other and their environment. The interactions in these ecosystems became the foundation for the development of Earth's biosphere. More than 600 million years ago, the first multicellular organisms appeared on the planet, marking a significant milestone in the evolution of life. These organisms were much more complex than their unicellular predecessors. They had the ability to organize their cells more intricately, which allowed them to perform a variety of functions, from forming tissues to growing and adapting to changes in the environment. It was from these first multicellular organisms that the evolution of more complex life forms began, which later formed the basis for the creation of modern, biodiverse ecosystems. These first multicellular organisms led to the development of important groups such as algae and corals, as well as other simple organisms that became the foundation for the evolution of more complex living forms. They played an important role in the formation and stabilization of the planet's primary ecosystems. The emergence and development of these organisms laid the groundwork for the existence of more complex life forms on Earth in the future. Over time, these simple organisms became the basis for the development of more complex biological systems. For example, algae began to play an important role in oxygen production, and corals became one of the first organisms to create reefs and other key biostructures that served as shelters for future species of animals and plants. These evolutionary processes sparked the formation of more complex biological interactions and the creation of intricate food chains, which laid the foundation for the future development of life on Earth. The first multicellular organisms, which appeared over 600 million years ago, marked a turning point in the development of the planet's biosphere, opening up new opportunities for the growth of diverse life forms. Although complex organisms, like those we see today, did not yet exist, the foundations were already laid for the development of complex ecosystems similar to the ones we observe now. Even before the beginning of the Cambrian period, which started about 541 million years ago, a variety of organisms already existed on Earth, though at a very low level of organization. They had limited abilities for specialization and interaction with their environment. But even at that time, the foundations for the future development of more complex organisms were laid. These organisms were the first stages of evolution, creating conditions for more organized life forms to emerge, eventually leading to the flourishing of complex biological systems. Thus, while the organisms of this period were relatively simple, their ability to evolve and adapt was key to the future development of life on Earth. These first stages of organism development became the foundation for subsequent generations of living beings, which would be able to adapt to different conditions and create increasingly complex life forms, eventually leading to the formation of modern ecosystems. Part 2. Early Paleozoic. The first multicellular organisms and life in the ocean. The Paleozoic era, which lasted from 541 to 252 million years ago, was one of the most important and pivotal stages in the history of life on Earth. It was during this period that new forms of life began to emerge, laying the foundation for the future development of the biosphere and the creation of modern ecosystems. The Paleozoic period was characterized by significant changes both in oceanic ecosystems and in the development of organisms themselves. One of the major achievements of this time was the formation of the first multicellular organisms and the development of complex life forms in the oceans, leaving a significant mark on the geological and evolutionary history of our planet. One of the most significant achievements of the early Paleozoic was the emergence of the first vertebrate animals, including fish. These organisms likely became the first creatures on Earth, with an internal skeleton, providing a true evolutionary advantage in the struggle for resources in the ocean. The internal skeleton gave fish greater strength, allowing them to adapt to the various conditions in the oceans and enabling them to move more efficiently and protect themselves from predators. This became a decisive factor in their development and subsequent spread across the planet. During this period, unique ecosystems began to form in the oceans, where constant changes occurred. New groups of organisms arose, thrived, and later disappeared, leaving behind evolutionary traces. The marine ecosystems of the early Paleozoic were highly diverse, and the oceanic environment became the ideal place for the development of multicellular organisms, such as the first fish, algae, and various marine invertebrates. These organisms became the foundation for future food chains and complex ecosystems. One of the most important moments of the early Paleozoic was the gradual increase in atmospheric oxygen levels, which had a huge impact on the evolution of life. The rise in oxygen content was the result of the active activity of photosynthetic organisms, such as algae, which contributed to the expansion of opportunities for the development of more complex life forms. The oxidation of the atmosphere allowed organisms to grow to larger sizes and improved their metabolic efficiency. This process created conditions for the formation of new species and contributed to the development of biological processes such as aerobic respiration, which was significantly more efficient than anaerobic respiration. However, despite the numerous evolutionary achievements during this period, mammals had not yet appeared. Their evolution would begin later, during the development of the Paleozoic and Mesozoic. Nevertheless, this period was crucial in the development of vertebrates, as the fish that emerged in the early Paleozoic were the precursors to other groups of animals, including amphibians and reptiles. However, during this stage, oceanic ecosystems remained the main centers of life on Earth. Throughout the early Paleozoic, several significant events marked stages in the evolution of life in the oceans. In addition to fish, other important groups of marine organisms emerged, including the first representatives of invertebrate animals. These became the foundation for the development of more complex marine ecosystems. Additionally, the development and spread of numerous groups of invertebrates, such as trilobites, began. These organisms were among the most common life forms on Earth at that time. They played a huge role in food chains and became an important factor for the development of life in the oceans. All of these processes laid the groundwork for the further development of life on Earth. Throughout the early Paleozoic, the foundations for the development of many species were established, which later became crucial elements of ecosystems on Earth. The oceans continued to be the center of life development, although new life forms were gradually emerging on land, which would eventually lead to the colonization of the Earth's landmasses. Thus, the early Paleozoic was a time of significant changes that laid the foundation for the development of more complex organisms, which became key in the evolutionary history of Earth. Fish, the first vertebrate organisms with internal skeletons, formed the foundation for the further evolution of more complex life forms. The rise in atmospheric oxygen levels created new opportunities for life development, and oceanic ecosystems became the basis for numerous evolutionary transformations that ultimately determined the course of the biosphere's development. Part 3. Mesozoic Era, the dominance of dinosaurs and the first mammals. The Mesozoic era, which spanned from 252 to 66 million years ago, is one of the most fascinating and crucial periods in the history of life on Earth. It was an era when the planet witnessed the dominance of dinosaurs, huge and amazing reptiles that became the symbol of this period. The Mesozoic is divided into three major periods: the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. Each of these stages marked significant evolutionary changes, with dinosaurs taking the dominant role in ecosystems, shaping not only the development of terrestrial organisms, but also many other species that emerged later. Throughout the Mesozoic era, Earth was covered by vast tropical forests that provided essential support for the numerous dinosaur species. These enormous animals spread across the planet, and in various parts of the world, new subspecies of dinosaurs appeared, evolving and adapting to the changing environmental conditions. Dinosaurs filled all ecological niches, from predators to herbivores, and their impact on the biosphere was immense. Their long reign meant that most other organisms on Earth played a limited role in ecosystems compared to these giant reptiles. The Triassic period, which began the Mesozoic era, marked the emergence of the first dinosaurs, which gradually spread and dominated the planet. They became the primary predators and herbivores, and by this time, a great diversity of species had already formed. Dinosaurs existed in many forms, from enormous creatures weighing tons and reaching gigantic sizes to small, fast, and aggressive predators who dominated various ecosystems. At the same time, climatic and landscape changes during this era also contributed to the emergence of various forms of life, from tiny insects to large reptiles. However, while dinosaurs remained the most prominent inhabitants of the planet, this period was also important for the evolution of other species, including the first mammals. Mammals, although much smaller compared to dinosaurs, appeared during the mid-Triassic period, about 225 million years ago. They were small, mostly nocturnal creatures capable of surviving in the shadows of large predators like dinosaurs. The earliest mammals were significantly smaller and had a limited number of species. They were carnivorous or omnivorous, feeding primarily on insects and other small animals. At that time, mammals had little influence on ecosystems and occupied their niche, which was limited by their size and population numbers. Compared to dinosaurs, mammals were small, elusive creatures that hid at night and primarily hunted small animals. Dinosaurs, which dominated the period, had much more room in ecosystems, and they became the primary energy consumers in these ecosystems. This period can be described as the time when mammals began to form their adaptations to the environment. They did not have much power or influence on ecosystems, and their role was more auxiliary. Their small size, nocturnal lifestyle, and insectivorous diet allowed them to avoid attention from larger predators and remain unnoticed. Therefore, during this time, mammals had little impact on the planet and only gradually began to gain strength. However, the changes occurring during this period laid the foundation for the development of more complex mammals in the future. The mammals that existed in the Mesozoic era became the evolutionary basis for the further development of mammals, which would eventually dominate the planet after a major change occurred at the end of the Mesozoic. Moreover, the Mesozoic witnessed significant changes in climate, plant life, and other forms of life. During the Mesozoic era, there was active spreading of coniferous trees, which became the main plants on the planet, contributing to the development of various animal species adapted to new conditions. Since dinosaurs were the primary food source for many species, this created a need for new adaptations, such as the development of defensive mechanisms in herbivorous dinosaurs and the improvement of hunting skills in predators. Among the key events of the Mesozoic era was the emergence of the first birds, which became descendants of dinosaurs. Birds, compared to other dinosaurs, had unique adaptations for flight, allowing them to obtain food in new ecosystems and migrate over long distances. Thus, the Mesozoic era was a time of incredible development and evolution of dinosaurs, as well as the beginning of important changes in the evolution of mammals. While dinosaurs ruled the planet, the first mammals were only starting their journey in a world that would later become their home. This period laid the foundation for the future development of life on Earth, where the changes that took place in the Mesozoic had a significant impact on the formation of modern ecosystems and the determination of the main evolutionary paths for future generations of animals and plants. Part 4. The End of the Mesozoic. The mass extinction of dinosaurs and new opportunities for mammals. The end of the Mesozoic era, which occurred about 66 million years ago, marked one of the greatest catastrophes in the history of the planet. This period was characterized by massive geological and climatic changes that dramatically altered the course of evolution on Earth. The most significant event was the mass extinction of the dinosaurs, which became one of the largest biological catastrophes in the planet's history. This extinction ended the long reign of dinosaurs that had lasted throughout the Mesozoic era. opening up new opportunities for other groups of organisms, particularly mammals. The most likely cause of this mass extinction is the collision of Earth with a large meteorite, which caused global changes in climate and ecosystems. The impact of the meteorite, according to scientists, may have triggered massive fires that ravaged the land, as well as the formation of a dust cloud that blocked out the sun, dramatically lowering Earth's temperature. These changes led to a sharp cooling of the climate that lasted for several years or even decades, which destroyed many ecosystems, including those inhabited by dinosaurs. In addition to this catastrophic event, the period also saw increased volcanic activity. Volcanic eruptions released large amounts of ash and gases into the atmosphere, further worsening climatic conditions and contributing to the depletion of vegetation and changes in the composition of the atmospheric air. This caused global shifts in Earth's ecosystems, where many species were unable to adapt to the new conditions, and as a result became extinct. The mass extinction of dinosaurs was such a powerful turning point that it freed up ecological niches previously occupied by dinosaurs and other large reptiles. The absence of these dominant organisms opened new opportunities for mammals, which at the time were relatively small and had a limited role in ecosystems. The extinction of dinosaurs, which wiped out most large species, allowed mammals to quickly occupy vacant ecological niches, leading to their rapid development. Changes in Earth's ecosystems also created new conditions for the development of mammals. These animals, which until then had mostly been small and nocturnal, now had greater opportunities to expand their ranges and colonize new territories previously occupied by dinosaurs. They began to evolve into various forms that adapted to the new environmental conditions, and as a result, they significantly increased in size and diversity. This process, which occurred after the mass extinction of dinosaurs, is known as the Paleogene explosion of development, as it was during this time that there was a sharp increase in the number and diversity of mammals. Specifically, after the extinction of dinosaurs at the end of the Mesozoic, mammals began to occupy new ecological niches and adapt to changing conditions. Since dinosaurs no longer existed, mammals were able to take over new territories, increase their populations, and more quickly adapt to the new ecological conditions. In the decades following the extinction of dinosaurs, large terrestrial mammals, such as primitive mammoths, appeared and became the dominant animals on land. Alongside them, other groups of mammals began to emerge, including the first carnivorous mammals, which later influenced the development of evolution and the formation of modern ecosystems. This extinction also had a profound impact on Earth's flora. Many plants, which had relied on dinosaurs to disperse their seeds, also underwent changes, but new groups of plants, particularly flowering plants, filled the vacant ecological niches. As a result of these changes in both flora and fauna, Earth experienced a period of great evolutionary transformation, during which mammals took on leading roles in the planet's evolution. The mass extinction of dinosaurs not only cleared the way for mammals, but also marked the beginning of a new phase in the evolution of life on Earth. It also provided an opportunity for the further development of new animal groups, such as birds, which inherited many features from their dinosaur ancestors, and diverse forms of mammals, including primates, which ultimately led to the emergence of humans. The extinction of dinosaurs became a crucial milestone in the evolution of life, paving the way for new stages in biological development on our planet. Prekripit Poisk Obosnui, Part 5, Paleocene and Eocene. The rise of mammals and new forms of life. After the mass extinction of dinosaurs at the end of the Mesozoic, around 66 million years ago, the Earth entered a new stage of evolutionary development, marked by significant changes in the biosphere. This period became a time for the flourishing of mammals. With the disappearance of dinosaurs as large predators and competitors, mammals were given new opportunities for rapid development, adaptation, and expansion into ecological niches that were previously occupied by other groups of organisms. At the beginning of the Paleocene, mammals were still relatively small and primitive animals, but just a few million years after the extinction of dinosaurs, they began to increase in size and diversity. This period was important for the evolution of new life forms, as it was during the Paleocene that the ancestors of large mammals such as rhinoceroses, elephants, horses, and many others appeared. During this time, mammals actively began to colonize new ecosystems, occupying diverse environments and increasing in numbers. This stage of mammalian development is characterized by their rapid expansion and the emergence of new ecological groups. Primates, a group of animals that would eventually give rise to humans, played a particularly significant role in the evolution of mammals during this period. The first primates appeared in the Paleocene, and their evolution led to the creation of a variety of forms, from small tree-dwelling creatures to more complex species. Primates became the foundation for the subsequent development of more advanced mammalian forms, which eventually resembled modern humans. One of the key factors contributing to the rapid development of mammals was the significant reduction in competition from other large vertebrate animals. Dinosaurs were no longer present, and new groups of animals, such as large lizards and birds, did not rise to the same prominence in ecosystems as dinosaurs had in the Mesozoic. This allowed mammals to quickly adapt to new conditions and evolve in various directions. In the Eocene, 56 to 34 million years ago, mammals reached significant diversity. During this period, they continued to evolve and spread across all continents. It was a time of great evolutionary change, with the appearance of new genera and species of mammals that adapted to various environmental conditions. For example, during the Eocene, new forms of land mammals appeared, including the ancestors of modern hoofed animals and carnivores, which became the main elements of the ecosystems of that time. The Eocene was also a period of significant climatic changes, which undoubtedly influenced the development of life on Earth. The climate became warmer, and new types of plants began to appear on the planet. Forests expanded across much of the Earth, creating favorable conditions for mammals, particularly those that adapted to arboreal lifestyles. Changes in temperature and atmospheric carbon dioxide levels led to significant changes in ecosystems, contributing to the development of new groups of animals, such as the first large mammals, which later became key components of modern ecosystems. The Paleocene and Eocene were periods when mammals not only increased in number and diversity, but also began to actively colonize all possible habitats, from forests to grasslands, from mountains to waterways. During these stages, mammals took leading positions in ecosystems that had previously been dominated by dinosaurs and began to establish their evolutionary paths, leading to more complex and diverse life forms. Thus, the Paleocene and Eocene were not only periods of the flourishing of mammals, but also marked fundamental changes in the biosphere of Earth, as new groups of organisms began to evolve and adapt to new conditions, paving the way for further evolutionary progress that led to the appearance of modern animal species, including humans. Part 6. Oligocene and Miocene, the development of modern mammal genera. The Oligocene, 34 to 23 million years ago, and Miocene, 23 to 5 million years ago, were important periods in Earth's history, when the first modern forms of mammals began to appear, laying the foundation for the development of many species of today's fauna. These stages were accompanied by significant changes in climate, geography, and the biosphere, which created new conditions for life on Earth. Continents continued to move, altering their positions, which in turn affected the formation of new ecosystems and changed the living conditions for organisms. The Oligocene was a time of significant geographical and climatic changes. The Earth was becoming more like the shape we see today, as continents actively separated, creating new oceanic spaces and forming new climatic zones. These changes had a profound impact on the development of living organisms. Temperatures began to drop, leading to the reduction of tropical forests and the expansion of grassland and savanna ecosystems. This environmental shift encouraged the development of new species of mammals, and also led to the adaptation of existing species to new conditions. During this period, more specialized and complex species of mammals appeared. One of the important changes was the increase in size of many mammal groups, particularly herbivores. These animals adapted to the new environmental conditions, characterized by larger open spaces and fewer forested areas. Specifically, the ancestors of modern horses appeared, evolving to live on grasslands, and the ancestors of rhinoceroses began adapting to drier conditions. These mammals had unique adaptations, such as specialized teeth for chewing grass, which allowed them to efficiently occupy new ecological niches. The Miocene, which followed the Oligocene, was a period of even greater growth and diversification of mammals. New families emerged, such as the cat and dog families, which had a significant impact on the development of carnivorous animals. These new groups began to emerge and actively occupy various ecological niches, enabling them to successfully compete for resources with other groups of organisms. The Miocene became a time when mammals, particularly carnivores, began to shape the evolutionary landscape. It was also a period of large territorial expansions for herbivorous and carnivorous mammals. Alongside the development of large herbivores and carnivorous mammals, a new group of animals, primates, began to emerge in the Miocene. These primates became increasingly specialized. They developed the ability for more complex behavior and social organization, which ultimately led to the emergence of human ancestors in later stages of evolution. Overall, the Oligocene and Miocene were periods of significant changes in the biosphere, during which a large number of modern mammalian genera were formed. These stages in Earth's history allowed mammals to adapt to new conditions, with new species emerging that evolved in response to changes in climate and geography, ensuring the continued development of life on Earth in the future. Part 7. Pleistocene: Ice Ages and Mammal Adaptation to Cold Conditions. The Pleistocene, 2.6 million years ago, 11,700 years ago, was a period on Earth during which the planet experienced several significant ice ages. This time reshaped the face of Earth's fauna, as many mammal species were forced to adapt to the harsh, cold conditions that arose due to the drop in temperatures. During this period, massive and powerful animals emerged, becoming symbols of the Ice Age. Mammoths, with their long fur covering their bodies, woolly rhinoceroses with thick skin, and reindeer, all of these animals were perfectly adapted to retain heat in tough climatic conditions. Special physiological adaptations allowed them to survive in cold regions. For instance, they had thicker fur with a layer of subcutaneous fat beneath it, helping them retain heat during brutal freezing temperatures. Additionally, these animals were capable of adapting to the harsh winter conditions when the air temperature would fall to extremely low levels. Climate changes, along with a series of tectonic processes occurring at the time, significantly affected the distribution of these mammals across the Earth. New geographical conditions forced many species to move in search of more comfortable living areas. They adapted to new territories, gradually adjusting to extreme conditions and altering their behavior and physiology. At a time when ice ages covered vast areas of the planet, nature became not only a challenge for the survival of species, but also a stimulus for their evolution. And although many of these animals disappeared from the world's map after the end of the ice ages, their adaptations and survival through these changes became an important part of the history of life on Earth. Part 8. Holocene: Humans and Their Impact on Mammals. After the end of the Ice Age, around 11,700 years ago, a new phase in Earth's geological history began, known as the Holocene. This period was marked by significant changes on Earth, not only due to natural processes, but also because of human activity. From the beginning of the Holocene, human actions began to substantially alter the environment, impacting numerous ecosystems and species that inhabited the planet. Humans started actively exploiting natural resources, developing agriculture, and building settlements, which led to significant changes in the natural environment for many mammals. One of the most noticeable consequences of human activity was the significant reduction of forested areas, which led to the loss of vital habitats for many species of mammals. Forests, which had been home to a wide variety of animals, began to be transformed into agricultural land or urban settlements, creating barriers to the movement and survival of many species. Climate changes, driven both by natural processes and human activity, created additional challenges for mammals. Rising temperatures, altered precipitation patterns, and changing seasonal cycles disrupted the natural conditions to which many species had adapted over millennia. Another significant factor was environmental pollution and poaching. Humans began actively hunting wild animals, particularly species of great economic value, which resulted in a sharp decline in their numbers. Some species of mammals were driven to the brink of extinction, and some even disappeared entirely from the face of the Earth. In response to these changes, mammals were forced to adapt to the new conditions of existence. These adaptations could include changes in behavior, migration patterns, and food habits. However, unfortunately, not all species were able to adjust to the rapid changes, and many became vulnerable to the consequences of anthropogenic factors. Thus, the beginning of the Holocene marked a period when human activity started to have an increasingly pronounced and often destructive impact on the environment and on the living organisms inhabiting the Earth, including mammals. As a result of these changes, many mammal species had to adapt to new conditions, or sadly become extinct. Part 9. Current status and problems of mammals. Today, mammals face numerous challenges caused by anthropogenic changes. Human activities are significantly altering the environment, creating new challenges for many species of mammals that are not always able to adapt to these changes. One of the greatest threats is the climate crisis, which leads to rapid and unpredictable changes in climate conditions. The increase in the planet's average temperature is altering ecosystems as well as seasonal cycles, including periods of reproduction and feeding for animals. Some mammal species, already adapted to specific conditions, cannot quickly change their habits or migratory routes, which can lead to their decline or even extinction. Environmental pollution is another critical problem for mammals. Chemical pollutants such as pesticides, heavy metals, and plastic enter the environment, negatively affecting animal health. For example, water pollution can lead to poisoning of fish and other aquatic mammals, and chemicals that accumulate in the body can disrupt their reproductive systems or cause death. The destruction of natural habitats through deforestation, draining of wetlands, urbanization, and the expansion of agricultural lands reduces the area of natural territories where mammals can live and reproduce. Without shelter and food sources, many species become vulnerable to extinction. In particular, forest animals such as bears, foxes, and deer are forced to seek new places to live, which is not always possible due to altered human environments. Despite these challenges, biodiversity conservation has become a priority for many countries and international organizations. Many governments and scientists are actively working on creating protected areas, national parks, and reserves that provide mammals with safe territories for life and development. Additionally, strategies are being developed to restore populations of species that are threatened with extinction, such as the reintroduction of animals into natural habitats. International cooperation plays an important role in mammal conservation. Thanks to conventions such as the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES, or initiatives to create ecoregions, countries are joining their efforts to preserve species and natural habitats. Conservation, protection, and restoration programs for natural areas typically include population monitoring, scientific research, as well as educational and awareness campaigns to engage the public in nature protection. However, despite significant efforts in conservation, the problem of mammal preservation remains complex and requires further development of policies, international collaboration, and raising environmental awareness among the population. Given the speed of changes in the natural environment, it is crucial that conservation efforts not only maintain their numbers, but also contribute to the restoration of the natural balance on the planet.